Treehouse, Book Number 29, A Merlin Mission, Christmas in Camelot, by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 1, A Royal Invitation. Sunlight had faded from the late afternoon sky. Puffy snow clouds were moving in. "Let's hurry, I'm cold," said Jack. He and Danny were walking home from school. Their Christmas vacation was just beginning. "Coo, coo!" "Wait," said Annie. "Look." She pointed to the white birds sitting on the tree branch at the edge of the woods. The bird was staring straight at them. "It's a dove," said Jack. "It's a messenger," said Annie. "From Morgan." "No," Jack said, afraid to get his hope up. They hadn't seen Morgan Le Fay in a long time. He really missed her. "Yes," said Annie. "She has a mission for us. I can feel it." In the hush of the cold twilight, the dove spread its wings and flew into the Frog Creek woods. "Come on," said Annie. "The treehouse is back." "You're just hoping," said Jack. "I'm knowing," said Annie. She ran into the woods, following the white dove. "Oh, brother," said Jack. But he took off after Annie. Even in the growing darkness, they easily found their way. They zigzagged between the barred trees and ran over the frozen ground until they came to the tallest oak in the woods. "See," said Annie, pointing to the top of the tree. "Yeah," whispered Jack. There it was, the magic tree house. "Morgan!" shouted Annie. Jack held his breath, waiting to see the entrance at the treehouse window. But Morgan did not appear. Annie grabbed the rope ladder and started up. Jack followed. When they climbed inside the treehouse, Jack saw something lying on the floor. It was a scroll, rolled up and tied with a red-violet ribbon. Jack picked up the scroll and unrolled it. The thick yellow paper shimmered with large gold writing. "Wow, Morgan sent us a really fancy note," said Annie. "It's an invitation," said Jack. "Listen. Dear Jack and Danny, please accept this royal invitation to spend Christmas in the kingdom of Camelot." Christmas in Camelot," said Annie. "I don't believe it." "Cool," whispered Jack. He pictured the beautiful glowing castle, lit with candles and filled with knights and ladies feasting and singing. "We're going to celebrate Christmas with Morgan and King Arthur," said Annie, "and Queen Guinevere." "Yeah," said Jack, "at the night of the Round Table, like Sir Lancelot." "Let's go," said Annie. "Where's the book?" She and Jack looked around the treehouse for the book about Camelot. The only book they saw was the Pennsylvania book that always brought them home. "That's strange," said Jack. "Morgan didn't send a book about Camelot with a royal invitation. How does she expect us to get there?" "I don't know," said Annie. "Maybe she forgot." Jack picked up the invitation. He read it again. He turned it over, hoping to find more information. The back of the scroll was blank. He handed the invitation to Annie. "She must have forgotten," he said. "Darn," said Annie, staring at the gold writing. "I really wish we could go to Camelot." The tree branch rustled. The winds began to blow. "What's happening?" said Jack. "I don't know," said Annie. "Wait a minute," said Jack. "You were holding the invitations, and you made a wish." The winds blew harder. "That must have made a magic work," cried Annie. Jack felt the surge of joy. "We're going to Camelot," he said. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. This is Camelot? Jack shivered. He could see his breath in the dim light. Annie was staring out the window. "This is Camelot?" she said. Jack looked out with her. The Camelot has landed in the grove of tall birch trees. A huge dark castle loomed against the gray sky. No light shone from its window. No banners waved from its turret. Winds whistled through its tall towers, sounding sad and lonely. "It's a desert," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. "I hope we came to the right place." Jack pulled his notebook and pencil out of his bag. He wanted to write the descriptions of the dark castle. "Hey, I see someone," said Annie. Jack looked out the window again. A woman was crossing the castle drawbridge. She wore a long cloak and carried a lantern. Her white hair blew in the wind. "Morgan!" said Annie and Jack together. They laughed in relief. Morgan hurried over the frost-covered ground toward the grove of trees. "Annie, Jack, is that you?" she called. "Of course! Who you think?" shouted Annie. She started down from the treehouse. Jack threw his notebook into his backpack. He followed Annie down the rope ladder. Then they reached the icy ground. They raced to Morgan's and both threw their arms around her. "I was looking out the window in the castle and saw the bright flash in the orchard," said Morgan. "What are you doing here? You didn't send us a treehouse for us?" asked Jack. "With a royal invitation to spend Christmas in Camelot?" asked Annie. "No," said Morgan. She sounded alarmed. "But the invitation was signed with an M," said Jack. I don't understand," said Morgan. "We are not celebrating Christmas in Camelot this year." "You aren't?" said Jack. Why not?" said Annie. A look of sadness crossed Morgan's face. "Do you remember when you visit my library and give King Arthur the hope and courage to challenge his army?" she asked. "Sure," said Jack. "Well, Arthur's enemy was the man named Mordred," said Morgan. "After you left, Arthur defeated him, but not before Mordred's dark wizard cast a spell over the whole kingdom. The spell robbed Camelot all of its joy." "What? All its joy?" whispered Annie. "Yes," said Morgan. "For months Camelot had been without music, without celebration, and without laughter." "Oh no," said Annie. "What we can do to help?" said Jack. Morgan smiled sadly. "This time, I don't think you can do anything," she said. "But perhaps it will lift Arthur's spirit to see you both again. Come, let us go inside the castle." Morgan held up her lantern and started toward the drawbridge. Jack and Danny hurried after her. As they walked through the outdoor courtyard, the frozen grass cracked under their sneakers. They followed Morgan's over the bridge and through the tall gate. There was no sign of life in the castle inner courtyard. "Where is everyone?" Annie whispered to Jack. "I don't know," he whispered back. Jack really wished they had a book about Camelot. It might help them understand what was going on. Morgan led them to the huge archway with two wooden doors. She stopped and looked at them. "I'm afraid no book would help you tonight, Jack," she said. Jack was startled that Morgan had read his thought. "Why not?" asked Annie. On all your other journeys, you visit real place and time in history," said Morgan. "Camelot is different." "How?" said Jack. "The story of Camelot is a legend," said Morgan. "A legend is the story that begins in truth, but in imagination take over. Different peoples in different times tell the story. They use their imagination to add new parts. That is how the legend is kept alive. Tonight we'll add our part," said Annie. "Yes," said Morgan. "And please, I beg you." In the lantern light, she looked very serious. "Do not let the story of Camelot end forever. Keep our kingdom alive." "Of course we will," said Annie. "Good," said Morgan. "Come then, let us go into the great hall and see the king." Morgan lifted an iron latch and pushed open the heavy doors. Jack and Danny followed her into the dark castle. Chapter 3. The Night of the Round Table. A pair of torches dimly hid the drafty entrance hall of the castle. Shadows danced on the worn tapestries. Wait here, said Morgan. I will tell the king of your arrival. She headed through the huge stone archway that led to the great hall. Let's peek in, Annie said to Jack. Jack pushed his glasses into place. He and Annie walked quietly over to the big arch and peered in. A ceiling of the great hall towered high above a stone door. At the far end of the room, King Arthur and his knight were sitting around a huge round table. They all wore brown tunics. They had shaggy hairs and beards. Their names were carved in golden letters on the back of their chairs. The knight of the round table, whispered Jack. Morgan was talking to King Arthur. Beside the king sat a woman in the plain gray robe. She had pale skin and brown curly hair. Queen Governors, whispered Annie. Morgan left the king, and Jack and Danny moved quickly back into the shadows. A moment later, Morgan appeared. I told the king that two special friends of his had just arrived, she said. Come with me. As they walked with Morgan through the great hall, Jack shivered. The huge room was deathly and damp. There was no fire in the fireplace. The stone floor was so cold that Jack could feel the chill through his sneakers. They stopped near the round table. King Arthur stared at them with his piercing gray eyes. Greeting from Far Creek, Annie said to the kings and queen. Annie bowed, and Jack bowed too. The queen smiled, but King Arthur did not. Your Majesty, you remember Jack and Danny? Said Morgan. You met them last summer in my library? Indeed, I shall never forget them. King Arthur said softly. Greetings, Annie. Greetings, Jack. How do you come to be in Camelot on this black night? We came in the magic treehouse, said Annie. A shadow crossed the king's face. He looked at Morgan. No, your majesty, I did not use my magic to bring them here, she said. Perhaps a bit of magic still lingers in the treehouse, and it's troubled on its own. What's going on? Jack wondered. Why does King Arthur seem unhappy about the magic treehouse? King Arthur looked back at Jack and Danny. However you have come, you are welcome in my kingdom, he said. He turned to the governors. These are the two friends who once gave me hopes and courage in a time of need. Queen Governor smiled again, but there was a sad look in her eyes. I have heard much about you, she said. I heard about you too, said Annie. Allow me to present my knight, said King Arthur. Sir Bors, Sir Kay, Sir Tristram. As the king named each knight, Jack and Danny nodded shyly. The knight nodded at them in return. Jack waited to hear the name Sir Lancelot, the most famous of Camelot's knights, but the king never said it. And finally, Queen Bovners and Queen Guanians. King Arthur said that the king then turned to three empty chairs at the table, and there's once sat three who were lost to us now, he said. Lost how? Wondered Jack. You may sit at their place to join our dinner, King Arthur said. Thank you, said Annie. Following Morgans around the table, Jack read the name curves on the back of the three empty chairs. Sir Lancelot, Sir Galahad, Sir Perceval. Jack took off his backpack and sat down in Sir Lancelot's place. As he sat tall and straight in a heavy wooden chair, Jack looked at the king and his knight. They were grinding meat off bones and slopping wine from heavy goblets. They ate out members are light. or delight. Jack really wanted to take notes. He reached into his pack under the table and pulled out his notebook and pencil. But before he could write a word, a serving boy brought more food. Jack quickly put his thing away. The boy set the crispy slabs of beef on the soggy piece of bread in front of him. The foods looked terrible. Not much of a Christmas feast, huh? Annie said in a low voice. Jack shook his head. Annie leaned close to Morgan and whispered so King Arthur wouldn't hear. What happened to the 3 lost knights? She asked. After a Mordred dark wizard cast his spell, the king sought help from the magician of Camelot. Morgan said quietly. They told him he must send his knight on the quest to the other worlds to recapture our kingdom's joy. What is the other world? Said Jack. It is an ancient, enchanted land beyond the edge of the earth, said Morgan. The place where it's all magic first began. Wow, whispered Annie. The king chose his 3 bravest knights to journey there, said Morgan. When they did not come back, Arthur turned against his magician. He blamed magic of all of Camelot's woods. Hence, he had banned magic of any kind from the kingdoms forever. But you're a magician, whispered Annie. Did the king turn against you too? Arthur and I have a long friendship, said Morgan. He has allowed me to stay in the castle as long as I promise not to practice the art of magic ever again. A feeling of dread crept over Jack. So, does that mean the magic treehouse is... Morgan nodded. Yes, banished from Camelot, she said. I'm afraid this will be your last journey, and the last time we see each other. Her eyes filled with tears. She looked away. What? The last time we see each other? Forever? Said Annie. Before Jack could answer, Morgan could answer. The wooden door swung open with a bang. The wind rushed through the great hall. The torch and candles flamed brighter, making the shadow leap wildly on the walls. Sounds of hoofbeats filled the air. A knight on the huge horse rode through the arched doorway. The knight was dressed all in red, from his shining helmet to the long cloaks on his back. His horse was dressed all in green, from the armor that covered his head to the clothes that hung from his sandal. Wow! Oh, wow, breathed Annie, a Christmas night. Chapter 4. Who will go? I am come to see Arthur the King, the Christmas knight said. His deep voice echoed from inside his helmet. His red armor gleamed in the firelight. King Arthur stood up. He stared fiercely at the knight, but he spoke in a calm, steady voice. I am Arthur the King, he said. Who are you? The knight did not answer Arthur's questions. So, you are the legendary King Arthur of Camelot, he said in a mocking voice, and these must be the famous Knight of the Round Table. Yes, said King Arthur, and again I ask, who are you? The Christmas knight still did not answer Arthur's question. The spell of the dark wizard has robbed Camelot of all its joy, said the Christmas knight. Has it robbed you and all your men of your courage as well? You dare to question our courage? King Arthur said in a low, angry voice. Camelot is dying, the Christmas knight boomed. Why has no one journeyed to the other world to recapture its joy? I have sent my best knights on such a quest, said King Arthur. They never return. Then send more, thundered the Christmas knight. No, shouted King Arthur, pounding his fist on the table. Never again will I feed good man to the magic and monster of the other world. Jack felt a chill of fear. What monsters? Then you choose your fate, said the Christmas Knight. If you will send no one else to the other worlds, all that your kingdom has gained through times, all beauty, music, wonder, and light, all that Christmas had ever been or could ever be, will be lost and forgotten forever. No, shouted Annie. Shh, Annie, said Jack. The Christmas Knight turned to the knight at the table. Who will go? He boomed. We will, shouted Annie. We will? Said Jack. Yes, we'll go on a quest, Annie yelled. She jumped up. No, cried Morgan Le Fay. Never, said King Arthur. Annie, said Jack. He leaped from his chair and tried to get rougher. Yes, thundered the Christmas Knight. She pointed his red wolf hands at Annie and Jack, the youngest of all. These two will go. You are mocking us, King Arthur shouted. They will go, boomed the knight. His word echoed without the hall. Oh no, thought Jack. Yes, said Annie. She pulled Jack toward the Christmas Knight. King Arthur turned to his men. Stop them! Several knights started to rush toward Jack and Annie. The Christmas Knight raised his club's hands high in the air. In an instant, the room felt deathly quiet. Everyone around the table was as still as a statue. King Arthur looked like a statue of the furious king. Queen the Governor looked like a statue of the worried queen. The Knight of the Round Table looked like a statue of fierce knights, and Morgan Le Fay looked like a statue of caring friends. Her mouth was open, as if she was calling out to Jack and Danny, but no sounds came from her lip. No sounds at all. Chapter 5. Rhymes of the Christmas Night. Morgan, said Annie. Annie ran to the table. She touched Morgan's cheek, then quickly pulled back her hands. She's cold as ice, said Annie. Tears filled her eyes. Annie turned to the Christmas Knight in a fury. What did you do to Morgan? She asked. Bring her back. Do not fear, said the Christmas Knight. His voice was softer and kinder. She will come back to life after you complete your quest. What exactly is our quest? Said Jack. You must journey to the other world, said Christmas Knight. There to find the cauldron. The cauldron is filled with the water of memory and imagination. You must bring a cup of the water back to Camelot. If you fail, Camelot will never come back to life. Never. How do we do all that? Asked Annie, wiping her eyes. Remember these 3 rhymes, said the Christmas Knight. Wait, let me write them down, said Jack. His hand trembled as he pulled out his notebook and pencil. He looked at the Christmas Knight. Okay, I'm ready, he said. Gripping his pencil made Jack feel stronger. The night voice rang out from inside his helmet. Beyond the iron grate, the keeper of the cauldron waited. Jack quickly wrote down the night word. Okay, what's next? He asked. The Christmas Knight went on. 4 gifts you will need. The first from me, then a cup, a compass, and finally a key. Cup, compass, key. Got it, said Jack. The Christmas Knight voice boomed again. If you survive to complete your quest, the secret door lies to the west. Jack copied down the last rhymes, then looked up at the knight. Anything else? He asked. Without a word, the knight pulled off his red cloak. He dropped it to the floor. It fell silently into the heap at Jack and Danny's feet. the Christmas knight snapped his horse's red reins, then galloped out of the great hall. Chapter 6. A White Compliment. Once a night was gone, the candle and torch in the great hall grew dimmer. A bitter chill crept over the room. "What does these 3 rhymes mean?" said Jack, looking at his notebook. "Who are the keeper of the cauldron? What secret door?" "I don't know," said Annie. "I just know we have to save Morgan." She gathered the red clock up in her arms. "We've got our first gift," she said. "Let's go." "Wait, we should figure this out first," said Jack. "No, we should just go," said Annie. She turned and headed for the archway. Jack pushed his glasses into place and looked back at the round table, at the frozen kings and queens, at the frozen knights, and at Morgan Le Fay. He loved Morgan. She was their great friend and teacher. If he and Annie did not go on their quest, Morgan's story and the story of Camelot and all the story about the magic treehouse would end it forever. Jack took out a deep breath. He put his notebook into his backpack. Then he turned toward the archway. "Annie," he said. She was gone. "Annie, wait!" he shouted. "Wait!" Jack ran out of the great hall. "Annie!" "I'm here," she said quietly. "I'm waiting." She was standing at the edge of the entrance hall, peering outside. "How do we get to the other world?" she asked. "Maybe the treehouse can take us." "Take us there," said Jack. "Come on." Together, Jack and Danny hurried through the inner courtyard of the castle and over the drawbridge. They ran over the frozen ground to the moonlit grove of trees. Clutching the red clock, Annie started up the rope ladder. Jack followed. They climbed inside the treehouse and sat on the floor. Annie picked up the royal invitation. "Close your eyes. I'll make a wish," she said. Jack closed his eyes. He was shivering from the cold. "I wish we could go to the other world," said Annie. The bare branch from the trees rattled in the wind. "I think it's working," whispered Annie. The wind stopped blowing. Jack opened his eyes. He and Danny looked out the window. The dark castle loomed against the sky. They were still in Camelot. It didn't work," said Jack, his teeth chattering. "Yes, it did," whispered Danny. "Look down." Standing below the treehouse was the biggest deer Jack had ever seen. The deer was staring up at them with amber eyes. His huge antlers seemed to glow in the cold moonlight. Most amazing of all, the deer was completely white as new falling snow. "A white stage," said Jack. Puff of frosty ears blew up from the stage nostrils. He stepped toward the treehouse and shook his giant hands. "He comes to take us on our journey," said Annie. "People don't ride deers," said Jack. But Annie had already started down the rope ladder. Jack watched from the window as he walked to the stage and spoke softly. The stage knelt. Annie climbed on his back. "Come on," she called to Jack. "Bring the clock." Okay, said Jack. He gathered up the heavy velvet clock. Clutching it against his chest, he climbed down the rope ladder. He hurried over to Jack, Annie, and the white stage. "Put on the clock and climb on behind me," said Annie. Jack pulled the clock on over his backpack. He pulled it around his shoulders and buttoned it at the neck. As the clock fell down around his body, the soft, smooth cloth made him feel warm and safe. Ready? Said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. He climbed on the stage back behind Annie. The white stage slowly stood up. Annie leaned forward, putting her arms around its neck. Jack leaned forward too. It held on to Annie. The red velvet clock drove over both of them, falling past their feet. The white stage stepped briefly over the frozen grass. He walked through the outer gate out of the castle. He blew out a puff of air, then broke into the leaping run. Jack held on tightly to Annie as the stage dashed across the frost-covered field. He jumped over hedgerows and the stone walls. He bounded across icy streams, and Annie braids floated on the winds. The red clock billowed behind them. Jack amazed at how easy it was to ride on the stage back. He felt calm and safe as the stage speeds like a white comet through the wintry countryside. The stage ran past flocks of sheep and herds of goats asleep in the meadows. He ran past the thatched huts and quiet stables. The stage ran on and on through the starry night. Jack saw the clouds-covered mountain ranks in the distance. When they came close to the craggy mountains, Jack was sure the stage would stop, but he galloped on, not even breaking his stay as he started up the rocky slopes. The stage finally came to the halt on the ledge of the steep cliff. In the windy swirls of fog and clouds, he knelt to the ground, and Jack and Danny slid off his back. The stage stood up. He stared down at them with his glowing amber eyes. "Thank you," said Annie. "Do you have to leap now?" The stage lowered his head and raised it again. He blew out a frosty puff of air that leaped away, vanishing into the mist. "Bye," Annie said wistfully. She stared into the mist for a moment, then turned to Jack. "What do we do now?" "I don't know," said Jack. "Let's read the 3 rhymes again." He reached under the red clock and pulled off his pack. He took out his notebook and started to read the first rhyme. "Beyond the iron gate." "Jack," interrupted Annie. "Look." Jack looked up. The wind had blown away some of the fog. Beyond the cliff rose another mountain. A huge gate was built into its sides. A pale light shone between the gate's thick iron bars. 2 knights in gold armor stood guard under flaming torch. "Oh man," Jack whispered. "That's it, the iron gate," said Annie. "If we pass through that gate, we'll be in the other world." Chapter 7. A Good Trick. As the winds blew away more fog, Jack and Danny saw the bridge. It was made of thick wooden plank held together with iron bands. It stretched all the way from the edge of the cliff where they were standing to the iron gate. "Come on, let's go," said Annie. "Wait," said Jack. "What about the guards?" The 2 guards in gold armor stood perfectly still. Their huge spears gleamed in the torchlight. "I don't know," said Annie. "Read the second rhyme." Jack looked in his notebook and read aloud. "4 gifts you will need. The first from me, then a cup, a compass, and finally a key." "The first gift is a Christmas night's clock," said Annie. "Yeah, I guess it's supposed to help us somehow," said Jack. He unbuttoned the clock from around his neck. Then he held out to get a good look at it. "Maybe it can make us invisible," said Annie. "That's not," said Jack. "Seriously," she said. "Clocks sometimes do that in stories." "Oh, it didn't make me visible, did it?" said Jack. "Maybe you're wearing it wrong," said Annie. "Give it to me." "Oh, brother," said Jack. But he handed the clock to Annie. It flapped in the wind as she pulled it around her shoulders. "Can you see me?" she said. "Yes, Annie," said Jack, rolling his eyes. "I can see you." Jack looked back at the gate. "Even if we get past the guards, what then?" he wondered. "The other world swallowed up Camelot last night. King Arthur said it was filled with magic and monsters. Look at me now." Jack turned to Annie. She wasn't there. "Where are you?" he said, staring at the darkness. "Cole, it worked." "Where are you?" Jack said again, turning around. "Here." Jack felt the hand touch his face. "Ah!" he said, jumping back. "It's me. I'm invisible. I pulled the hood over my head. That's the trick." Jack felt the chill run down his spine. "Oh, man," he whispered. "Watch. I'm going to take the hood off." In a flash, Annie was back. "It felt creepy to be invisible," she said. Jack was speechless. "The magic only happened when you wear the hood," said Annie. "Good trick, huh?" Yeah," said Jack. He shook his head. This is just too weird." "Don't worry about it being weird. It's a great way to get past the guard," said Annie. "Plus, it's the way to hide in the other worlds. We don't know what we'll find there, right?" "Yeah, right," said Jack. "Okay, good," said Annie. "Now stand behind me and don't move." Jack put away his notebook. Annie threw the wallet clogs over his shoulder and backpack. "Great. It's big enough for both of us," she said. She carefully arranged the fur around them. Then she pulled the huge hood over both their heads. Jack looked down. He couldn't see his body at all. He felt like he couldn't breathe. In a panic, he threw off the hood. "I hate that," he said. "I told you it's creepy," said Annie. "But if we don't wear it, we don't get past the guards." "Yeah, I know, and we don't have protection in the other world," said Jack. He took a deep breath. "Okay, let's do it." Annie pulled the hoods up again. "I'll hold on to the hood so it won't blow up," she said. "You just think about getting across that bridge, nothing else." "But I can't see my feet," said Jack. "You don't need to see your feet to walk," said Annie. "Come on, do it for Morgan." "Right," said Jack. He and Annie stepped on to the bridge. "Whatever you do, don't look down," said Annie. As they started over the bridge, the wind whistled around them. Jack couldn't help it. He looked down. Not only was his body missing, but the fog beneath the bridge was moving in the wild, spinning whirl. Jack felt dizzy and faint. He stopped. "Keep going," whispered Annie. Jack took a deep breath and looked straight ahead. Then he started walking again. He went slowly, step by step, toward the pale light behind the bar of the gate. In the flickering torchlight, the guards looked like giants. As Jack and Danny slipped invisibly behind them, Jack held his breath. "How will we open the gate?" he wondered. "Whoosh!" said Annie loudly. Jack's heart nearly stopped. Had Annie lost her mind? "What are you doing?" he whispered. "I'm a wind," Annie whispered back. Whoosh! Annie gave the gate a shove. It swung open as if pushed by the winds. Jack looked back and saw that the guard had turned in their direction. "Quick!" whispered Annie. She and Jack moved silently through the gateway. "Whoosh!" said Annie. She pushed the gate back. It shut with a clang. Through the bars, Jack saw the guards face the bridge again. "Good work," he said to Annie. "Thanks," she said. Jack and Danny turned away from the gate. "Ooh," whispered Annie. "The other world," whispered Jack. Chapter 9. The Other World. The other world was completely different from the dark, cold world Jack and Danny had just left behind. They were standing at the edge of the pale green meadow. The meadow was bathed with warm, rosy sunlight. 3 horses, one black, one brown, one gray, were gazing nearby. On a hillside beyond the meadow, red and purple flower sprinkled like bright buttons. "It's so nice here," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. "Maybe we don't need this more." He pulled the hoods of the clouds off their heads. He was relieved to see Annie's face, and to see himself. "What was the first rhyme again?" asked Annie. Jack pulled out his notebook. He found the first rhymes and read aloud. "Beyond the iron gate, the keeper of the cauldron wait." He looked around wearily. "I wonder where the keeper of the cauldron are," he said. "What do you mean?" Annie asked. "We just sneaked past them, remember?" "Whoosh! I don't know," said Jack. "The rhyme says beyond the iron gate. These guards were standing in front of the gate. They weren't beyond it." "Shh!" said Annie. "Listen." From over the hill came a faint sounds of sweet, joyful music. Maybe the keeper of cauldron were playing that music," said Annie. "Maybe," said Jack. He listened for a moment and smiled. The music made him feel light and happy. "Let's go meet the keepers," said Annie. "Not so fast," said Jack. "Shouldn't we be invisible again, just in case?" "I guess so," said Annie, sighing. Jack pulled the hood off the cloths over their hands. Together they started walking invisibly across the soft meadow. They passed the 3 horses and climbed the flower-covered hill. At the top they looked down. "Oh man," said Jack. The hill sloped gently down into a misty green glade. In the middle of the glade, the bands of musicians played flutes and pipes, drums and violins. Around the bands, hundreds of dancers danced in a huge circle. "The keeper of the cauldron," said Annie. The dancers and musicians were smiling and laughing. There were blue coats and green coats, white gowns and yellow gowns. They were sporting red slippers and hats with covered feathers. The dancers looked like people, except they all had glittering gold skins and wings that shimmered in the mist like spun silver. "They're beautiful," said Annie. "Yeah, they are," said Jack. "I don't think we need to be invisible with them," said Annie. "I think you're right," said Jack. He and Annie took off the red coat. They laughed in the dry grass and ran down the hillside to the winged dancer. The dancer paid no attention to them. They just kept going around and around in their joyless circle. "I feel like dancing with them," said Annie. "Me too," said Jack. It was strange. He was usually shy about dancing, but he wanted to join this dance more than anything. Jack pulled off his backpack. As he sat it down, he saw 3 swords lying in the grass, but he didn't stop to wonder about them. The music was calling. The winged dancer broke their circles and welcomed Jack and Danny into their dance. Annie held Jack's right hand as he grasped the cylinder gold hands of dancer on his lap. The dancer smiled down at him. Like the others, she was as tall as a grown-up, but she didn't have any lines or wrinkles on her face. All the dancers looked very young, yet they seemed ancient at the same time. As Jack danced around in the circle, his heart leaped, his spirit soared, his glasses fell up, but he didn't care. He kept dancing. As he danced, everything in his mind became a blur. He forgot about Morgan and Camelot. He forgot about the quest of the waters of memory and imagination. He forgot all his fears and worries. Jack, look, Annie cried. Jack looked at her. Hi, he shouted, laughing. No, don't look at me, she called. Look there, look across the circle. I can't see, he said. 3 nights, Annie shouted. 3 nights dancing. Great, Jack shouted. No, Jack, they look awful. They look sick, Annie yelled. She pulled away from the circle and trembled back into the grass. Jack, she called. Stop dancing. But Jack didn't want to stop. He wanted to dance to the wild music forever, forever and ever and ever.